In Conker's Bad Fur Day, you end up unplugging a hole at the bottom of this pond, creating a large whirlpool that flushes the water down. Despite that, the pond and river that comes from it remains unscathed. This is just one of many bizarre cases involving water acting strangely in this world, which is obviously because it's a video game. But what if it wasn't? What would the potential real-life ramifications be, and how much does water in this universe follow our understanding of it? To answer that, we'll be mapping out the water's journey, where it begins and where it ends, while trying to explain the oddities that we come across along the way. First off, let's find the source of this water. I first assumed it begins at the top of Windy, where the quirk is, but it actually comes from this waterfall in Bat's Tower. Unfortunately, even with cheats, we can't get a good look at what the source of the waterfall is. So, with applying the cycle that waterfalls in the real world, we can make a reasonable guess that whatever is behind this mountainish wall is the source of this waterfall, since it's high enough up to accept any rain that comes down. Now we turn our attention to the other end of the river, which leads into Spooky. I feel like I end up here often. Here is a lake, or maybe another river, that connects into the one from Windy and flows into this doorway. Other than that, these connecting water flows seems to break the laws of physics, like on 3 levels. First, in Live Reloaded, the color of the water suddenly turns red, like quite abruptly into blood. You would think that we would see some sign of that color in Windy, or it would be more of a gradual change throughout the tunnel. But no, my only guess is that the change in hue happens between the loading zones, because of the tiny bit of blood pouring out from the rock slide. Trust me, this is only the beginning of the nonsensical nature of Live Reloaded's water physics. On the flip side, both versions have a weird spatial quirk with this ledge in the tunnel. Despite it seemingly being above us, the entrance to this ledge is actually on the same y-axis as the tunnel it's supposed to be over. So what's going on here? Only explanation I can think of is similar to the loading zone from earlier. A ladder or something elevates us beyond the entrance that we simply don't see. But even that doesn't really explain how the water travels up. I guess a pump of some kind? That's all I got. Third and final one has to do with the rock slide that occurs upon entering Spooky, which would realistically cause some problems to both sides of the damming. From my understanding, blocking the river's journey would cause the water level to rise in Windy, since the water that normally would go into Spooky is now staying put, as long as we leave this vortex out of the equation. We'll get to that later, since man, this thing is a headache and a half. I first want to tackle this other headache in the form of this river in Spooky, seeing as it connects us to another area in the game with water, Hangover, and it will help us determine how the damming will affect Spooky. By the way, I want to clarify that I'm not an expert on water, so if you have some more formal education on the subject and feel like adding to or correcting what I say in the video, I would love to hear it down in the comments. Now the water that comes up from up here is probably coming out of this grate. It doesn't look like that, but that's probably the only option the water has here. Now, we don't actually see the grate, I don't think. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. There's no grate down here at least. Now, this doesn't make a lot of sense. How the fuck did we go up? Wow, and I thought that whirlpool was gonna give me a headache. This literally defies all senses of logic. I mean, yeah, this has to be the water that's going into Spooky. There might not be a grate to like visualize that, but I think that's the most logical explanation. Also, this current is really weird. I don't think this is how water works. And then some of it just goes off the edge there. Like, this is super weird. Also, I guess water in this universe just somehow goes up. Like, how does that make any sense? Okay, well, this is a mess. I think the only way to explain this, I think I'm stretching it very far to like have a plausible explanation for the water here. I think that this cave entrance here connects to like a bigger cave that has inside of it another waterfall where rainwater comes in, so like the source of all of this water essentially, and then splits to go one into the top of the Hangover section I showed you earlier, and the other way it goes into Spooky, where the grate I showed you earlier is like the entry point. And that causes the water to go out here, create another waterfall. This river is just video game nonsense happening. With that, we can confirm that there are 2 sources for all the water that goes through the levels: Spooky, Hangover, Windy, and Bat's Tower. one that starts in Hangover, and another that begins at Bat's Tower. They then travel their own respective journeys and meet up in Spooky. Kinda beautiful, I guess. And it makes sense that this current here is so strong that you can't swim up it, because not only does it have that downward momentum that it gets here, it's also literally connected to a big waterfall that has a lot of power behind it. And all of it's coming out of that little grate somehow. Like, that's the only way I can explain it. So, it's video game stuff, you know? Now, does that mean Spooky would remain unchanged from this rock slide? I don't think so, since there will be less water feeding the river lake and in turn lowering the water level, meaning this tunnel will no longer have water running through it. Windy, on the other hand, would have an increase in water as we stated earlier. Now, the question is, would this cause a flooding? Well, you probably guessed, but no, since there's currently a big hole draining this water down another path. Where this path leads is hard to say. Could be a big dark empty cave, or since it seems man-made, it could also be a compartment of some kind to hold the water. I am speculating, of course, but whatever the case is, this will at bare minimum lower the amount of water the river receives. However, there are also other outcomes to consider. If the space under the vortex is unstable enough, it could collapse and create a sinkhole that ruins Windy as we know it. On the other hand, it will simply dry up the river, leading to less plant life by the bees, which sucks for them. We won't even talk about the honey hive cave, because where do you even start with this? As I see it, this vortex either balances out the changes caused by the rock slide, dries up the river, or worst case scenario, completely ruins Windy's ecological balance with a sinkhole. So fun things all around. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Live Reloaded is even more nonsensical when it comes to its water. You wouldn't think so, with it being a newer game and all, but let me just showcase what I mean. Okay, I just quickly have to mention an error that I've made. In Bad Fur Day, the entrance to Spooky is apparently fully boarded up, despite it seeming like water is going through. The way I see it is that the water is still getting through a gap of some kind, but if that doesn't sit right with you, this might change a few things. First, the board being broken will have the opposite effect of what I mentioned earlier with the rock slide. Windy's water level will sink, while Spooky is the one that rises. However, thanks to the river being blocked off again, this will be avoided. Yet, this increases the chances of the river in Windy drying up thanks to the drainage. With that out of the way, back to our regularly scheduled Live Reloaded nonsense. Okay, here's a thought. Some food for thought. Maybe in Live Reloaded, this area is like that grate, and those other grates up there are connected to like the meat grinder in Dimension, which is why the water is red. And then, just like in the original Bad Fur Day, this grate is also connected to the water that's in Hangover, and then they kind of merge in there, which is why we don't see the transition into blood here. I would say that's pretty plausible. I didn't think about that. In Live Reloaded, there's just a hole here. Oh, interesting. The current here goes against, like, to the left instead of outwards. Yeah, that makes no sense. There seems to be only one current here, unlike in Bad Fur Day, where there are two merging currents that come out from Windy, and then the other one from Hangover. It has only one current. Interesting. Like even here, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Just to cover my bases, I'm going to go check out Hangover. And that's weird. How do we end up out of that? And how's there's no water coming out of that? Well, this makes it even more weird. I guess in this version, this right here is just the source. Is it open down? No. Wait. Where's all this water coming from? I guess the... like these? Why isn't there water coming out of them now then? This is so weird. How is there any water here? From my understanding of how water works, this should not exist. There's no like hole or open sky for the water to form here. The only place it could be is down here into the abyss here, but the water's already pouring down there, and the tubes that are connected to down there, like that one up there, which we come out of if you fall down into the void, there's no water there. This place is even more broken than in Bad Fur Day. This makes no sense. This is impressively. Also, it's daytime here. It's supposed to be nighttime. Okay, hold on. I just realized in Live Reloaded, there's no water traveling through here. Also, it's poo water. Here it seems. But there's water here? Okay. Well, this is getting ridiculous at this point. What is happening? It's flowing out? Okay. This river in this version makes absolutely no sense. It is physics breaking beyond belief. It is flowing out into what has to be the source of this entire water stream. Is that snow? Okay, that's cool. In this version, no, it's like faces. What the fuck? Okay, so then it's probably the same reason as in Bad Fur Day. It's rain that collects on top of the mountain and then flows down by gravity down here, forms this river, which then travels into Windy. Despite it seeming like it's flowing out from Windy, that doesn't make any sense. What? And how can you flow into Bad's tower if there's no water flowing in? It's not able to flow in. This is so weird. That's incredible. Honestly, that is incredible. So in Bad Fur Day, there's some semblance of logic behind the river, but in Live Reloaded, there's like, it just all falls apart the moment you start looking into it. Like technically, I guess rain could be forming this little lake here, and then it travels down the stream there, forming the river. But there's no way water can go in there and out like it's supposedly showing. Especially the way the current seemed to be in there, like it was going in to Bad's tower and not out. And then the color change, like down by the by Spooky. It is funny. Examining video game rivers is actually funny. I didn't think it would be this fun. I'm pleasantly surprised. Look at how it's a straight line. A change. Poo water, normal water. Poo water, normal water. What? Guess that little lake there is just rainwater. And here is a lake that's connected to the ocean that goes to a neighboring country, I guess. And that's all the water. When I started this endeavor, I did not expect it to unfold into the mess that not only Live and Reloaded showed us, but also Bad Fur Day to a certain extent. Yet, I'm happy it did. I have never seen such convoluted yet detailed water in a video game. But that's part of their charm, you know? The expressive and ridiculous logic games follow in order to make the world feel more engaging and alive. Newer games have gotten to the point where, for the most part, the world feels like its own living and breathing pocket dimension, which is great and I absolutely adore that, but I also still love the older and sillier side of that spectrum. It just goes to show that no matter how advanced the next big title gets, there'll always be a charm to the less polished parts of games. Even GTA 6, with this massive budget, probably will have this side to it. A part of me is kinda hoping for it. If you're from the future and know the answer to this, don't let me know, cause that would spoil the experience for me. Anyway, if you want more, check out this video on the forgotten and weird atmosphere in Conker's Bad Fur Day. And I'll catch you in the next one, I hope.